By watching this video, you will learn how to install Git, what Git is, how to install SSH and what SSH is, and how to install other developer tools. So let's get started. We are actually going to be using something called a package manager in order to install our tools. On Windows, this is the PuTTY package manager, and it is basically an automated way to manage and install and update software packages. We're going to install a few that we're going to need for the screencast, as well as installed a few that we need in the future. So to install PuTTY, you go to PuTTY.org and click install. Now for the impatient, it has this right here installed with cmd.exe. And there's a command to run right here. It's kind of long. If you click on copy command text, click that icon, it seemingly does nothing, but it actually does copy this to the buffer. So all we have to do is paste this into a command prompt. To do that, press start. Then type command, and you should get the command prompt. This is a real important step. Please note this. For PuTTY to install correctly, one must run it as an administrator. So instead of just normally clicking it, right-click it and select Run as Administrator. Again, right-click it and Run as Administrator. You'll get this question, do you want to allow this app to make changes? You say yes. And then right-click, and it should paste the command from PuTTY. Now go ahead and press enter. Now this may take a little while. Or not, that was faster than I thought. PuTTY is ready for us, but we need to restart command prompt in order to use it. This is because PuTTY modifies some settings that need to be reloaded before use. So let's go ahead and do the same thing. Go ahead and type command and click Run as Administrator. Now we can use PuTTY to install some packages. So to do that, we type in choco space install space node.js tac lts. This will install something called Node. This is not something we're going to be using immediately in pre-work. However, it is something to have good and ready to go for when you hit the ground in the classroom. So the LTS, by the way, that indicates the version known as long-term support, which is, as of the time of this recording, is Node 8.9. And there is a 9 series out there, and we're not using that. That's a bit more experimental. We're going to add one more thing, space tac y. The tac y is just convenience because otherwise we get a lot of yes-no permission questions on installing everything that's required to run Node. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it downloads and installs Node. And this can take a bit. Next, we're going to install PHP. And so notice what I did there. I actually used the up arrow. The up arrow allows one to repeat the last command so I can edit just the basic choco install. And then I want to install PHP this time and tac y again. And PHP does download and install quite a few more things, depending on your Windows installation. certain specific Windows updates are required for PHP to function. And that's the convenience of Chocolatey and other package managers, is that they will automatically resolve these needs for you and install software that is required in one go without having to micromanage and be scratching your head as to whether, do I need this update? Do I need this? Do I need this thing? No. Chocolatey will take care of it for you. Just let Chocolatey do the heavy work. Now that PHP is successfully installed, we can install something called Composer. And what Composer is basically PHP's equivalent to Chocolatey. Chocolatey downloads and installs software for Windows. Composer downloads and installs software for PHP. This is a much lighter weight installation. PHP probably took a little while. Composer is the last of the background packages we need to install. Let's go ahead and install the packages that we need for this pre-work screencast. We'll start off with something called PuTTY. Now what PuTTY is an SSH client that allows us to connect to the server so we can manage our files and create web projects with it. So go ahead and install that. And note that the package name was putty.install, not PuTTY. Same thing goes for Git. Git is also a git.install package. What the .install suffix means in Chocolatey is to do a system-wide install instead of just a local-only install, which is going to make things much easier on us. So we'll go ahead and install Git as well by doing choco install git install. And what Git is a tool for developers to synchronize and organize their code amongst the team. It's all about the team. It's really how you become a team player in IT, is to use Git. Now the last package we'll be installing after Git is actually PHP Storm itself, which is kind of cool that we can automate the download of PHP Storm on Chocolatey. So we'll go ahead and install PHP Storm. And the PHP Storm, of course, is going to be a pretty large install. Okay. Now, that should be all we need to do in Chocolatey. I don't generally recommend, by the way, running the command prompt as an administrator. You should only do that when you're explicitly dealing with system settings. Running as an administrator is actually a security hazard full-time, so please don't do it. So we can close the command prompt, and Chocolatey is installed. The next thing we need to do, now that we have now that we have the tools installed, is to actually start using them. The first tool we're going to set up is PuTTY. We will come to GitHub momentarily here. So we need to create what's known as a key. Now this key will allow us to connect to different servers and authenticate ourselves without the use of passwords. This is actually much more secure than just using straight up passwords. So to generate the key, we need to open something called PuTTYGen, which should be available after the Chocolatey installs of PuTTY, and you should have PuTTYGen right there. Now, the first thing we should select is the type of key to generate. There are many options here. We're going to use ED25519. This is the latest in what's known as elliptic curve cryptography, and creates the fastest and most secure key possible. Then click generate. It says please generate some random. Whoop, that was very fast. Move the mouse if you need some randomness, and then it generates. This is what's known as our public key. There are two aspects to the key, the public key and the private key. PuTTY actually will save these in one file. It'll display the public key out here. The private key is not displayed for security reasons. But it's important to know that there are two aspects to the key. The private key is just that. It must be held sacred and protected and not let out to anybody. The public key is just that. It's public. You can put it anywhere you want. You can publish it on the web, email it, tattoo it, or make a billboard out of it. It's public. It's fine. Now click on key passphrase and invent a passphrase for this key. Make it a really good one. Make sure it's one that you don't repeat. If you're one of those individuals who uses the same password for everything, shame on you. For shame. That is a very, very insecure practice, and this SSH key is the key to all your professional development and all your software development work. So please, please make this passphrase different and unique from any other passphrase you've used before. And notice the use of the word phrase. It is better to actually type in several words with a space and maybe with some symbols mixed in as a good strategy to create a good passphrase. And again, please, please make sure that this passphrase is very different from what you normally use. Write it down in a safe place, preferably in a password manager such as Dashlane, LastPass, or OnePass. And go ahead and save the private key. Now let's have a very specific path for our private key here. Please follow this convention as we will, in the classroom, be looking at these specific files. Should you ever request assistance, we will always be looking for this for files in this location. So go to Desktop, and then right-click and hit New Folder, and name it Bootcamp. Bootcamp with a small b, not with a capital B. Bootcamp with a small b. Cannot stress that enough. Now within here, we'll go ahead and make the file name SSH TAC key. SSH TAC key, that's all we need. Go ahead and save it. And keep the PuTTY generator window open. We'll need it for later, but at least we've saved the key. So, setting that aside, we can now sign up for GitHub. So let's go ahead and sign up for GitHub. Click sign up right here. And choose a username. It's very important that this username be very professional. This username will be part of your professional branding and will be pretty much the key that you give your employers saying, hey, come and see all my code. My name is this. So make this this is a very professional account. So make this username very professional sounding. I suggest using some combination of your first and last name. And if you do anything else, just as long as it's professional and really creates and enhances your online presence as a developer, that's good. So. And there you go. Go ahead and create an account. Naturally, I don't need to create an account because I have my own. So I will log into that right now. Okay. Now, the next thing is called two-factor authentication. I do recommend that you enable this at some point. It makes your account much more secure. So if my password is compromised, my account is not compromised because a special code is sent to my phone, and I have to type in that code to log in as well. That means they have to compromise both the password and my phone. And these codes are only good for 30 seconds. And so I don't mind typing them in a screencast because by the time I finish this sentence, this code will have expired. And here we are. So now that we have logged in or signed up to GitHub, let's go ahead and hit the settings here in your account. Now click SSH and GPG keys in the left nav. Now let's go ahead and create a new SSH key. I have a lot of SSH keys here. But that's okay. You probably won't have any, but it's the same process. I just click on new SSH key, give it a title. Bootcamp key is good for me. Come back to the PuTTY gen and go ahead and copy this little box right here. Go ahead and copy him and then paste that in. It should start with SSH TAC ED 2559 and then end up like that. Let's try and add it. There we go. Now that SSH key has been added. Now that we have told GitHub about this key, we need to tell CNM about it. This key-based authentication is actually much more secure than standard passwords. It's actually much more secure than standard passwords, even though it does require the manual step of going around and passing your key around to the services you plan on using. It still does have a great level of security that passwords can only dream of. So I logged into the SSH key editor by using my CNM username and password, and I just paste in the key again. Click on Add SSH Key, and here we go. My SSH key has been added OK. And you should see the key immediately appear. Okay, now we're ready to start using the key now that we have told GitHub and CNM about it. We can go ahead and close the browsers. Now, we don't need the PuTTY key generator. We can close that as well. The next thing we need to set up for ourselves is something called the PuTTY agent. The PuTTY agent manages your keys and automatically loads them at boot, so you don't have to micromanage every time you want to use a key. But it's going to require a little bit of a setup at first. So go to the bootcamp directory. And you should have the SSH key that you just created. So what we need to do right now is to do right-click in the empty area, do New, Shortcut. And let's go ahead and browse to, should be the PC C program files, PuTTY. And then the first one here, it's P agent spelled a little weird, but it's PuTTY agent. So again, C program files, PuTTY agent spelled a little weird. then click Next. Give it a name. I'll call it PuTTY Agent. And hit Finish. Okay. It's not quite right, though. We need to tell PuTTY Agent to load that key automatically. Here's how we do that. So press Control, Shift. Again, Control and Shift, and right-click the SSH key. And click Copy as Path. Now right-click the PuTTY agent normally, not without no Control Shift this time, just a normal. Go to Properties. Now, really important, we have to change the target a little bit. The current target is okay, but we just have to add something to it. So click on the end, press a space. That's one space. If you do not have this space, it will not work. If you do not have this space, you will die. Please, for the sake of everybody. Space. And go ahead and press Control V to paste. What we just did was to tell PuTTY agent to automatically look for that key that we made when it loads up. Now, we could double click this and it'd work. But kind of better idea. Let's make this start at boot. So right click on it and hit Cut. Now we have to go to a special path. I'll write down the path in the page that accompanies the screencast. This special path is going to be, get ready for this, %app data %. That's a special system path in Windows. Then Microsoft. And notice I'm using completion every time I hit whack here. Microsoft, Windows, Start menu, Programs, Startup. So it should take you to a pretty complicated path. It auto-resolves the app data to probably users, your username, app data, roaming, Microsoft, Windows, Start menu, Program, Startup. Probably empty, could be empty. Your system could have something. My system doesn't. But in any case, just paste. Okay. Now let's go ahead and test this. What we did is that this special little startup group in the start menu, actually, anything you put in here will automatically on launch, automatically at boot. It will go ahead and start up that program. And we put the PuTTY agent to load the key at boot. The only way to test this is to restart. So I'll go ahead and restart this. We'll restart Windows. Okay, I'm going to log back in. Now, I should be prompted for the SSH key password when I log back in, and there it is. Good. You want this to happen every time you restart. And go ahead and put in the passphrase you invented. Perfect. You should see right here PuTTY authentication agent, and if you double click it, you should see your key right there. That is successful. We're almost there. Now the next step in configuring all this, let's go ahead and test drive PuTTY. Now that PuTTY is ready to go, we can actually start using it. So let's go ahead and create a test connection. So press start, go to PuTTY. Now not PuTTYgen this time, just PuTTY. Now, what we need to do is go ahead and create a profile that we can connect with. To do that, let's go ahead and fill out our host name. It's bootcamp-coders.cnm.edu. And I like to save the sessions after my host name, so I press Control A followed by Control C to copy that. And then in a save session, I paste by pressing Control V and hit save. Now we're not ready yet. Go to connection, and then data. Now the auto login username, go ahead and type in your CNM username here. This is your CNM username. Not my CNM username, yours. Now come back to session and hit save one more time to save those settings. Let's go ahead and test it. To open it, we only have to double click right here. The Bootcamp Coder is right here. These are all the sessions we have. And as your repertoire grows, you'll have more and more servers to connect to down here in this blank area. So we'll just double click here. I'm presented with this question. Are you sure you want to connect to this server? This is a normal question when you have connected to a server for the first time. There's nothing alarming here. I would be alarmed if you've been connecting to any server for a long time and all of a sudden it changes. That could be nasty. But in this case, this is the first time we meet and we're shaking hands for the first time, so we'll say yes. And we know it went well because of the first two lines. It says we're using our CNM username. We're authenticating using the public key. And most importantly, we were not prompted for a password. Did you notice we didn't have to type in a password in order to connect? That's a good thing. That means the key-based authentication, which prevents the typing of manual passwords. Now, it's not only more convenient, but much more secure. Please make sure that you're not prompted for a password. If you're prompted for a password, you did one of the steps wrong, and you need to go back and retrace your steps. Very good. Now we can just type exit at the prompt and press enter. The session will go away. That's okay. We were just test driving the session to make sure that we can connect via SSH for all of our other projects. The next thing we have to do is a final post configuration on Git. Then the screencast is complete. We need to grab one of the other files from PuTTY and put it into Git's path. To do that, go ahead and open up Windows Explorer. Go to the C drive, and then go to Program Files, PuTTY, plink. Now we're going to pull the same trick we did before. Press Control Shift, and we need another copy as path. Now we can right click on this PC and hit Properties. Now click on Advanced System Settings. And click on Environmental Variables. Git needs to know where PuTTY is in order for Git and PuTTY to cooperate and make friends. So here are our variables. These system variables are quite fascinating. They do affect a lot of developer tools. I do encourage you to kind of have a look at what you have. We need to create a new system variable. It'll be a system variable. So new right here, not this section, but this section here. New. The variable name is git _SSH. The variable value you can go ahead and paste in. The only little quirk about this is that these quotes that are pasted along with it actually get in the way. So delete the quote from the very end and from the very beginning to where it's just C program files PuTTY plink.exe. Press OK and through all the dialogues to save the settings. Great, let's test it. So press start and type in Git. You'll get a couple a couple of options for Git. Git bash is what we want. Git bash. Okay, now let's go ahead and type in this command. Quote $, all caps, GIT _ SSH, quote, space, git at github.com. Now what this is, it's kind of a text-only version of what we just did in PuTTY by answering that question, are you sure you want to connect? So we'll go ahead and press enter. And now we get this. The server's host key is not cached. The server's RSA key is this. Enter wide at the key and carry on connecting. Again, this is a normal question. It's just the same question that we just experienced in PuTTY, just in a little different format here on the command line. And we're going to go ahead and say yes. A normal question if you're connecting for the first time. Right. Beautiful. Now, you should look for this. Do you see the sentence that says, hi, whoever you are? You've successfully authenticated, but GitHub does not provide shell access. That is a success. We want to make sure that it says hi, and then whatever your username is on GitHub. That's real important that you can get through this entire thing. Now, if that is good, then we have just one more thing to configure in Git, and we are totally set up to create a new web project. Git config tac global space user.name and put your real name in quotes. So what we're doing now is telling Git who we are. So Git config to configure Git. Global means every repository under the sun. User.name, and this is supposed to be your plain, ordinary, real name. This is going to be published and will be a signature in your Git history. Okay, now I need to do the same thing for my email. So I could, of course, type out git config tac global user.email, but that's doing it the hard way. If I simply press up arrow, then I get my last command. And so now all I have to do is edit pretty much the same thing, just a few changes. Now go ahead and it's user.email and put your email in quotes. Now please make sure to use whatever email you signed up with GitHub. Use that. It's real important that the emails match. Okay, 2 more configurations, we're done. The next is called pull.rebase true. When you pull and grab files from GitHub, this sets the default strategy to rebasing instead of merging. Without doing a full algorithmic analysis of rebasing versus merging, suffice to say that rebasing is faster and simpler and creates a cleaner Git history. And then the last one is push.default simple. Again, like pull, we're going to choose our default push strategy. And when we push and push stuff up to GitHub, we'll use the simple strategy. Rebasing and the simple strategy, of course, are the simplest options. And we always like the simplest and fastest. And now our screencast is complete. We are now ready to try our hand at our first web project. So by watching this video, you have set up Git, set up SSH, set up Chocolatey, and installed software packages you will need both in pre-work and in the class. You may now proceed to the next screencast.